Segment 3, it's July 5th, 2024. I'm with John Jeckovich, World War II veteran, Battle of the Bulge. And I'm in chapter 6, page 61, Overseas and Beyond. He's off of furlough. He's getting ready to go overseas, but he had one last pass, and he used it to visit Anne in Owensboro. She was dressed stunnily, but not pretentiously, and she seemed to have a flair for color combinations, which heightened and exalted her beauty immensely. I've never seen her wear anything I did not like, as she complimented everything she wore. So she was a nice dresser.
Yeah.
Did her hair nice, nails.
Yeah.
Just an all-around nice-looking lady.
Right?
Just an all-around nice-looking girl. Anne asked if it'd be all right if she spent some time at school, and she was scheduled for a quiz. She didn't want to miss it. I told her great, I would spend some time at the library when she completed her quiz. Driving to the library, I could not resist the temptation of putting my hand on her knee. She turned and smiled and said happy she was to see me again. She seemed more relaxed if she was resigned to herself the idea of my going away, without really resolving anything permanently. After she'd taken a quiz, which only a half an hour duration, I asked Anne if she had plans she had made tonight. She asked me what I wanted to do, and I looked rather sheepishly and grinned. She leaned over, kissed me, and drove out of the parking lot. I then asked her if she has eaten, and she replied she had not. And she just got home from work, showered, dressed, and came straight to the bus station. I also said that I had not eaten, and I had a desire of something Italian. She suggested Pastelana's Cafe on West 2nd Street, was specialized in Italian dishes. I said that was great, as I was starved. Pastelana Cafe was a unique place. Do you remember that Italian cafe?
Yeah.
Describe it to me.
It was an old-fashioned cafe. We've been there a long time. The second owner, the kids took over from the parents.
So it's a generational Italian.
Yeah, and they kept it clean just as good as the parents did. But they were more knowledgeable, but the kids went to school for that.
And how many seats?
Two brothers.
No, how many seats were at the cafe? Was it a large restaurant?
Well, they had a good reputation. The food was good, the place was clean, that was big, the place was clean, and the food was good.
Pastella's Cafe was a unique place with a definite Italian flavor to it. What was especially liked about it was Stelli's Bakery adjoining the cafe. We would get those wonderful aromas of freshly baked and pastry flowing throughout the cafe. The dinner turned into more of a celebration than anything else. As we ordered a bottle of red Italian wine, we both succumbed to the festive mood. Anne had several glasses during the dinner and become more radiant and desirable as the evening progressed. I enjoyed watching her, especially when she made those enticing facial expressions. I got a chance to admire and love. She was lovable and enchanting. She was lovable and enchanting, and I was enamored of her and completely under her spell. As we left the cafe, I asked her if she wanted me to drive. She hesitated for a moment and handed me the keys. As I opened the door for her, I kissed her on the cheek. During driving out of the parking lot, I missed second gear and to be grinding the gears to locate it. Was this a shift manual on the steering column or on the floor?
On the steering wheel.
So 3 on a tree, as they call it. Is that right?
Yeah.
Anne giggled softly and snuggled up closer to me, putting her head on my shoulder. Instinctively, I headed for the bluff, missed a turnoff, and headed direct into the next intersection. I pulled into a place at the bluff, shut off the engine, and in my arms, and began kissing her. I murmured how much I missed her and that I loved her. As I kissed her, we talked gently. She began touching my body passionately.
And the what?
Oh boy. She began touching my body passionately and tenderly. A short time later, we both sat motionless, thinking of the time we relentlessly moving on to our eventual departure. We experienced the feeling many times, but somehow these last few times between more meaningful. There was a suggestion of a final departure with nothing to look forward to in the next day, next week, or even the next year. Anne finally stated she had mixed feelings about not having to been with me more, and she also thought she had doubts of telling me. She immediately dismissed the thought and said she was happy with our relationship and would cherish it always. I then asked her about discussion on marriage and whether we had done right on that matter. Without hesitation, she replied, time was always against us and we were always flustered about it. Anne felt that if these times were normal, during a normal courting relationship, there'd be no problem. Not that there was one now, but she did not believe she would be forced to the issue, and I agreed with her that she had not. She continued, but after a period of time, I became selfish and wanted you all to myself. The marriage issue became secondary. It was not the all-consuming precedent, something I wanted in this moment. It was not a high priority item. I was holding her and caressing her fingers, and we talked now and then, kissing them individually. She mentioned that her mother was also hesitant about an early marriage and that we felt pressured because I was going overseas. Her mother also thought we'd make an ideal couple, would be devoted to one another, and have a very successful, happy marriage. I did not mention my mother, nor did Anne bring it up. I believe she was well aware of the situation. So as my mother was concerned. This was the only part of the entire scenario that really frustrated me. The fact that my mother had stood in the way of our future together. Anne knew that I was aware of her not knowing this. It was also a breach in our relationship, a small one at a time, but it proved workable as it changed the rest of our lives, Anne's and mine. We talked about other matters, how often we would write, her schoolwork, and what she would do after graduation. She asked about my future plans, and I said I did not even think about that, but I just wanted to get through the next several years while still in the Army. Strangely, I felt I did not have to prove anything about myself to her. She knew every minute detail of how I thought and responded to any particular event, and accepted and loved me for what I was. My dilemma was in tolerating my own feelings and trying to overcome the disparity and the discrepancies in my own emotional makeup. I felt if I was there, the weaker of the two, and I did not like the way it made me feel. I kissed her and said enough of Psychology 101. It was getting late and we better plan our next move. I told her a little more of the situation at camp and that we could ship out at any time. I would try to get a pass as long as possible, and also said that if things suddenly change and she did not hear from me in several days, it would probably meant that we had left camp and that I would call her in the first opportunity I got. Shoo! She kissed me and wished that these were normal times. I suggested if these were normal times, I would have never known her and we could not be sitting here holding each other's and contemplating our future together. She brightened at the remark and said fate has brought us together and that what we must make something out of our good fortune in meeting. I kissed her on the hand and said, congratulations, you have just come full circle in your thought process. I looked at her wristwatch. It was 23:30 hours. In a short time, I'd have to catch the bus to camp. So on this leave you got to go to Owensboro, it was not an overnight leave.
No.
You had to rush to get there.
And get back at the retreat at Reveille Expo next morning.
What time did you have to return?
5:30.
And what time did you have to start work?
At no particular time. I wasn't committed at any time.
So you had a...
They were ready to go to camp. We would get inventories and doing that. We were ready to move out.
All right, let me understand. What time did you leave camp to go to Owensboro?
What time? I got the camp bus
At what time?
at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I picked up the other bus in where the hell was it? Buffalo, and then I stayed with that.
So how many hours did you have in Owensboro?
With Ed?
Yeah.
Oh, a full day.
Oh, okay. But you weren't allowed to stay overnight.
No, I never stayed overnight.
These were just day...
I had to be back at Reveille every morning.
Yeah. Since we were not too far from the bus station, I asked Ann if she wanted some coffee. She replied that she just wanted to stay here until it was time to go. She snuggled up to me and said, time?
18.
She snuggled up to me. She snuggled up to me and said she did not want me to go. I asked her without thinking if she wanted to be a wife or of a fugitive. What did you mean by that? A wife?
A wife or what?
A wife. I asked her without thinking if she wanted to be a wife of a fugitive.
Who do you?
You're writing this. You asked Ann.
What do you mean a fugitive?
I'm reading this sentence. Let me read the paragraph, then you can tell me. This is your writing, not mine. She snuggled up to me and said she did not want me to go. I asked her without thinking if she wanted to be the wife of a fugitive.
Oh, she wanted me to go AWOL.
Okay, all right, that's what I was getting to.
Yeah.
She wanted, if she wanted to be a wife of a fugitive. Hey, Tom, take care, old boy. She wanted to, she snuggled up to me and said she didn't want me to go. And I asked her without thinking if she wanted to be a wife of a fugitive. She looked at me and kissed my cheek and stated that she would not like that. We sat in silence as she gazed into the lights of the city below, holding one another for a fear of losing each other. Our relationship had blossomed these past few weeks, and we were more comfortable in each other's presence, as there were not the slightest perception of polite mannerisms on any of our parts. We were just delighted to be in each other's company and enjoyed every minute that we were together. I finally said it was time to go after we switched seat positions, so she was driving once again. She hesitantly started the car and backed down the parking place. We drove to the bus station in silence. It was not until I was ready to get out of the car that she turned in, put her arms around me, and began to kiss me. I held her for a minute, savoring each precious second, then released her and walked to the waiting bus. I turned before I entered the bus. I was always remember how she looked as I waved. Yes, fate had brought us together, but fate could not keep us together. Even though we were corresponded throughout most of my stay in the Army and held each other in the highest esteem of love, I never saw Ann again.
Yeah. That's just another war story.
Ann gave me a new meaning in a young man's life, something I had never experienced without knowing her. She made my life fuller and richer by being with her, instilled in me a sense of worthiness, and certainly,
Well, I never thought I'd marry her. Never.
which I so utterly and completely lacked before. To say that my life was forever changed by knowing her would be a cute understatement. She gave me self-confidence in my innate and intrinsic abilities, an appreciation of life more bountiful and gratifying than I perceived possible. To know her was to love her, and I'd be eternally grateful for the privilege of knowing her and being a recipient.
Well, I didn't write to her when I was overseas.
And being a recipient of her sincere love. Let me just read this again. Even though we held each other in highest esteem, I never saw Anne again. Anne had given me a new meaning to my young life. Something I never would have experienced without her.
Well, that was
So that was it. You never heard from her again.
That was first love.
Huh?
First love.
But you never seen her again.
No.
Well. Let's talk about it. After that, in Paris, you were with Renee, and we'll talk at a later time how Renee was killed. And then...
No, I mean, no, by then I was overseas.
Yeah, I know. That was in Paris, Renee. When Renee was killed by the Germans because she was the French resistance. And then after that, in Haverford West, you met the Young family. And to this day, 2024, we still have a spokesman in Haverford and West still trying to tie up the loose ends of the Young family because...
that was Gene. That was altogether different.
We tied up the loose ends of Anne, and tell us how we tied up the loose ends of Anne. You called her, we found her, you called Anne personally 4 or 5 years ago. Tell us how that conversation went.
No, what are you talking about?
When you called up Anne.
No, we never found the other one, Gene.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about Anne in Owensboro.
Yeah.
You called Anne. Tell us how that conversation went after 70 or 80 years.
Well, you were there on the phone.
I got her number from the
I took the picture down from my mother up.
But tell her how the conversation went.
Yeah.
You talked to her. What did she say?
On the phone?
Yeah.
I couldn't understand. She's too people.
She had a case of Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And so that was it. It went from the last time you seen Anne when she dropped you off at the bus stop.
Well, that's the difference. When you're young, you got a different outlook on when you meet these people. And then when you get older, you put it back in perspective and you say, what the hell, that was just part of living.
But it was still a gift to be able to talk to Anne that gave you so much 70 or 80 years later. That was still a gift to be able to do that. And so the conversation didn't go too well. And so what did you do right after the conversation on the phone with Anne?
I took her picture down. I put my mother up there.
And where'd you put Anne's picture?
I got a piece of stiff cardboard. I put it in a blanket and wrapped it up and put it someplace. I didn't want to put it out on a table someplace. Somebody grab it or throw it out or something. But I don't know what happened to it.
Well, I'm sure it's there. So anything you want to say about your last visit with Anne and then how it went from there?
Well, see, that was... Well, then when I went overseas, I started the whole thing over with somebody else.
Who was that?
I had girlfriends in England.
Who was that?
I had girlfriends in France.
Haverford West. Who was that in England?
Who?
Jean Young.
Yeah.
Jean Young, we've been trying to locate. I got a spokesman, and maybe if I have time...
Well, she was 6 years older than I was.
Jean Young had a fine family. They lived in Haverford West. I have a spokesman, and maybe if I have time tomorrow, I'll play back the update from my spokesman I have in Paris and Haverford West that have been searching for the Young family, Jean Young particularly, and there's not...
You know, going back 20, 30 years to meet these people after when you lived with them.
But still, there's got to be some type of trace.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
There's got to be some type of trace. Yeah. The only stone that's unturned with Jean Young in Haverford West, and before we're done reading the end of this book, we'll have an answer. We got an answer to Renee. She was killed by the Germans in French resistance that she was in, and
she's the one who's going to be a nun.
She was. She was in a monastery, but she had second thoughts on her religion. She doubted her religion when she came back from the monastery, and she seen that her young brother and her father was killed in Paris by the Germans. So then she went into the French resistance.
Then she got into the resistance. The brother superior told her, you got to change your voice. So that's why they sent her to Vietnam.
And then they tortured her and killed
as a
her.
missionary.
Yeah. They tortured her and killed her.
That's where she got killed.
Wow.
Yeah, but that's... When I did that, when I got into France, I did the same thing. Renee Thompson, making brains. Cooking brains.
Who was cooking brains?
Well, my mother started it, and I think I had it once.
And how was it?
And then I asked her, can you cook brains? Oh, well, I can do cooking. And she did a nice job cooking brains.
Who was that, Renee?
Huh?
Renee?
Yeah.
Huh. Did you also have tripe there?
Huh? Tripe, you had tripe there, yeah, too. They have a different food up there.
You said you went down to the meeting rooms for the French resistance. What did that look like?
It was the air raid shelter, and what it was a train ran through there. That's where the French and the people over there put the trains underground, and that was their office.
That was outside of Paris?
Huh?
That was outside of Paris?
Yeah. Well, the RAF was bombed in the daytime, and America was bombed at night. I was in the air raid shelter half the time.
So it was 24-hour bombing.
Yeah.
The town was just completely the city and the country was completely destroyed.
Well, they were mostly concentrated on Germany.
Yeah.
They want to cut their supplies off, and they did.
Yeah, they sure did. I slept soundly back at camp as a huge weight had been lifted off my chest as I felt rested as I showered and shaved that morning. This would be our third day on the assignment and the work progressing smoothly, and the people working with me were top-notch, including the prisoners of war who also cooperated and efficient. Sergeant Flood had made the comment that we'd be finished ahead of schedule, and I did not want another detail before we shipped out. I had to slow down and pace myself the next few days. The daylight hours passed rather quickly, but it was the evening hours before lights that dragged on. I got bored with the PX music, and they were showing repeats at the theater. I wished that Ann was nearby so that I might see her at night, but naturally that was not going to happen. I got to know Larson and Lake better, and after a while I felt if I had known them all my life. Minutes?
6.
As we were under restraint, we were told that we were going to pick up our replacements when we go overseas. I was hoping upon hearing the news that we'd get a new bunch of replacements similar to Spotsta and Gaffney. We had left in the company. At present, we were about my age, and I felt that they were too immature in the actions and thought they would be good soldiers. What soldiering we had to be done. I did not object to going to combat with them. Towards the end of the second week, we had completed the work detail in the supply room and the warehouse. I called Ann several days on our last visit and informed her that nothing had changed, and I would try to get a pass shortly and would call her when we were available. She was anxious to see me once again, and I sensed the angst in her voice over the phone. The next Friday, we put on alert and restricted to the company area.
We shipped out, and that's the end of it.
Say that?
We shipped out, and that was the end of it.
Okay, this is here we're coming up to, I guess. The next day, we were put on alert and restricted to the company area. That meant no more passes and possibly no more phone calls.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Now, we ended that ended that. That ended that, yeah.
I knew that I could not call Ann until later that night, and I wondered if I'd be able to call her then. There was mass confusion in the barracks and the company, for that was a matter of fact. as everyone was uncertain of the upcoming events and how long before we shipped out. A restriction can last several days or several weeks. One thing for certain was definitely shipping out. We're definitely shipping out. It was only a matter of time. The purpose of the restriction was to facilitate all troops from one location and move out as a unit with the least possible confusion, and at the same time
They're going over the division.
and keep the deployment secret as possible. So you had no idea where you were going,
No, we weren't going to the Pacific. We knew that.
but you had no idea where you were going.
We were going to Europe. But where we landed was a different question.
How come you knew you weren't going to the Pacific?
So
Why did you know you weren't going to the Pacific?
that was crazy over there with those Japanese.
But how did you know that you weren't going to the Pacific?
How?
Yeah, how did you know?
How they were shipping the stuff out? They were shipping the stuff out for North. Now they were shipping stuff out for South.
Okay, so you monitor where they're shipping the goods
Yeah, they
to.
gave us wool underwear, short,
okay.
glasses. You wouldn't get that in the Pacific.
So that must be some type of relief that you weren't going to the Pacific. You didn't want to go to the Pacific.
No, we were lucky. We were lucky. I don't know how they figured it, but they figured it that way to my advantage, our advantage.
So the deployment was as secret as possible. An alert signified the intent. The logistical problems involved in moving 30,000 troops was huge and mind-boggling. And the one thing the Army did not want to do under these circumstances was to hunt down individuals or groups. So they put restrictions for like 2 weeks. So all the soldiers were there.
They were isolated, no passes or nothing.
And you're not running all over.
They don't want to look. Well, some of them were AWOL, and the MPs looking after them. They found 3 of them. They never found the other 2.
But they wanted to be sure when you're ready to take off, almost everyone's there.
Yeah, you got to have a division. You got to have a division with you.
And the one thing the Army did not want under circumstances was to hunt down individuals or group. When it was time to move out, they wanted you there, ready to go expeditiously as possible. They were on a strict time schedule, and they did not want to be out looking for half the division.
Well, they didn't guard our barracks or nothing. We were free to go to PX. We were free to go on passes. That they didn't guard us because they knew well, a couple did go AWOL, but that was a minority.
Did they ever return?
Well, 2 of them they got back. The other 3, the other 2 they never found.
They never found. The 2 that brought back, what happened?
Well, they got dishonorable discharge.
Minutes?
2.
The barracks were a mess. Clothing strewn about, newspapers on the floor, and worst of all, the latrines were in bad shape. They had not been policed in several days. The PWs were assigned to the barracks cleanup for past few weeks, but evidently whoever's in charge of the detail had shirked and eluded his duties. After chow that night, Lape and I went to the PX for no other reason than to get out of the barracks. There were card and dice games throughout the barracks, and those who were not gambling were raising hell one way or another.
Yeah, they throw rubbers all over the barracks and
Making a mess.
breaking windows and everything else.
Did the MPs have to come in?
No, they didn't call them in. No,
Wow. Minutes?
1. So just
that was the last night. They only did that one night.
let them talk.
So they just raised hell the last night
Yeah,
before taking off.
yeah.
Wow. So
That was a few. Most of the people were caught. They say, "What the hell? We got to go." Some of the so rubbers around, pissing on the floor and all that.
So like in every group, there's hell raisers and
Yeah.
good
There's
people.
jerks in some groups all the time.
In any group,
Yeah.
bad people and good. But
Spasta was a pain in the ass. That Dago, little shitty ass Dago.
who's that?
Spasta.
Spotson was a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Whatever finally happened to him?
Well, he went overseas with us, but he didn't. He got mixed up. We were going overseas. We were in that boat for 3 months, and I don't know what the hell he did, but they found out he's a pain in the ass, and they cut him off at the next pier, dumped him back to the States or whatever they did. I don't know what they did, but they didn't want him anymore.
Maybe they give a dishonorable discharge.
Yeah.